There comes a point when emotions no longer feel real. Laughter feels forced, tears won't come, and everything blurs into dullness. You stop reacting not because you don't care, but because caring hurts too much. Emotional numbness is the silent scream of the soul, a defense mechanism built to survive pain. Yet, in protecting yourself from sadness, you also block joy, love, and peace. You exist, but you no longer feel alive. This story explores the hidden psychology of emotional numbness, how it starts, how it consumes, and how to heal from it. Emotional numbness rarely begins with a sudden breakdown. It creeps in quietly, like a fog that slowly clouds the mind and heart. At first, it's subtle. You start feeling tired more often, not just physically, but emotionally. Things that once made you smile now barely stir a reaction. Conversations feel shallow, laughter feels forced, and moments of joy seem fleeting. Deep inside, a quiet exhaustion grows, the kind that doesn't go away with rest or distraction. This is the silent beginning of emotional numbness, where the mind starts to protect itself from feeling too much. For many, it starts after a long period of emotional strain, heartbreak, constant disappointment, loneliness, or the pressure to hold everything together. When pain becomes repetitive, the mind creates distance as a form of self-defense. It learns that emotions equal hurt, so it starts to block them out. This process isn't intentional, it's survival. You don't wake up one morning deciding to feel nothing. It just happens gradually. Your emotional system shuts down to stop the overwhelm. In a way, numbness feels like peace at first. No more anxiety, no more tears, no more chaos. But soon, that peace turns hollow. As the numbness deepens, you begin to notice the absence of life's colors. Music no longer moves you. Sunsets lose their beauty, and even love starts to feel distant. It's not that you don't care. It's that you can't care the way you used to. The heart becomes heavy yet silent, and the mind drifts between apathy and confusion. You may look fine on the outside, functioning as usual, but inside, everything feels muted, like watching your life from behind a glass wall. What makes this stage so deceptive is that it can masquerade as strength. You tell yourself you're finally over it, or that you've grown tougher. But true healing doesn't come from disconnection. It comes from feeling and processing emotions, not escaping them. The silent beginning of emotional numbness is not an end, but a warning, a signal that your heart is overloaded and in need of care. Recognizing it early is the first step toward healing, because once you understand that numbness is a protective shield, not a personality trait, you can start the journey back to feeling alive again. Emotional numbness is more than a feeling. It's a psychological defense mechanism built for survival. When the human mind experiences prolonged stress, trauma, or emotional pain, it begins to protect itself by shutting down emotionally. It's as if the brain flips a switch, reducing the intensity of emotions to prevent further damage. While this process may help someone survive emotional chaos in the short term, it often leaves them disconnected from joy, love, and meaning in the long run. From a psychological standpoint, emotional numbness often arises from emotional overload. The brain, flooded with stress hormones like cortisol for too long, begins to desensitize its emotional response systems. This is similar to how the body goes into physical shock after trauma. It numbs the pain to keep the person alive. In emotional terms, this shutdown makes you feel detached from your feelings, relationships, and even your identity. You don't feel sadness or happiness. You simply feel nothing. Many people who experience numbness have endured prolonged emotional strain, childhood neglect, abusive relationships, burnout, or chronic stress. Their nervous system adapts by disconnecting emotional signals to avoid being overwhelmed. This is not weakness. It's the body's way of saying, you've had enough pain. Let's protect you now. However, when this response becomes long-term, it transforms from protection into paralysis. You may find it hard to connect with others, struggle to care about things that once mattered, or even lose a sense of who you are. The psychology behind numbness also ties deeply to avoidance behavior. By suppressing emotions, the brain avoids reliving painful memories, but in doing so, it also blocks healing. Emotions are energy meant to move through us. When suppressed, they don't disappear. They linger beneath the surface, showing up as fatigue, irritability, or emptiness. Over time, the emotional freeze becomes a habit, and feeling nothing starts to feel normal. The tragedy of emotional numbness is that it robs life of its texture. Without sadness, we can't truly feel joy. Without vulnerability, we can't experience connection. Understanding the psychology of numbness means recognizing that it isn't a flaw. It's an emotional armor formed by pain. Healing begins when we learn to gently lower that armor and trust that it's safe to feel again. Inside you feels disconnected. It's as though you're present in life but not truly participating in it. This emotional distance isn't a conscious choice. It's the byproduct of the mind's attempt to protect you from further pain. Unfortunately, in doing so, it isolates you from the very emotions that make life meaningful. Everyday experiences begin to lose their depth. You go through the motions, talking, working, even socializing, but everything feels muted. Smiles become mechanical, conversations lack warmth, and achievements feel hollow. You tell yourself you should be happy or excited, but the feelings never come. The emotional wall between you and the world grows thicker, and you start to wonder if you'll ever feel normal again. In relationships, this numbness can be misunderstood. Loved ones may see you as distant, detached, or uninterested, not realizing that your emotional system is in survival mode. You might avoid intimacy or deep conversations, fearing that opening up will trigger pain you're not ready to face. Instead, you build routines, stay busy, or distract yourself to maintain control. On the surface, it looks like stability. Underneath, it's quiet suffocation. What's painful about this stage is that part of you wants to feel again, to laugh genuinely, to love freely, to cry when your heart aches, but another part resists. Feeling means vulnerability, and vulnerability once brought hurt. So you remain behind the wall, safe, but emotionally starved. You may even start to believe that you're broken or incapable of love. But in truth, this numbness isn't a flaw, it's a wound. The wall exists because at some point, your heart was overwhelmed and needed protection. Living behind the wall can last months or even years, depending on how long you've carried emotional pain. Yet, the very fact that you notice the numbness means something inside you still wants to heal. Deep down, there's a quiet longing to reconnect, to feel alive again. That longing is hope, and it's the first crack in the wall that once kept you safe but now keeps you from truly living. Emotions may shield us temporarily, but over time, it creates deeper emotional and psychological consequences that extend far beyond the initial relief. The longer we stay disconnected, the harder it becomes to reconnect with the richness of life. One of the most significant costs of emotional disconnection is the impact it has on our mental health. When we suppress emotions like sadness, anger, or grief, they don't just disappear. Instead, they fester beneath the surface, contributing to chronic stress, anxiety, and depression. These repressed emotions accumulate, leading to feelings of isolation, frustration, and a sense of numbness that becomes even more entrenched over time. You may feel emotionally drained, fatigued, or simply empty. This isn't because there's something wrong with you, but because the natural process of emotional expression has been blocked, and the emotional backlog is slowly taking its toll. Physically, emotional disconnection can also manifest in various ways. Chronic emotional suppression can lead to sleep disturbances, headaches, stomach problems, or unexplained aches and pains. Stress, anxiety, and unresolved emotions contribute to physical tension in the body, and over time, this can create real discomfort. The body and mind are intrinsically linked, and when emotional healing is delayed, physical symptoms of stress often follow. Relationships are another area where emotional disconnection exacts a heavy price. When you're emotionally numb, it becomes harder to connect with others, and your relationships may begin to feel shallow or distant. Loved ones may sense that you're not fully present, even if you appear fine on the outside. Over time, this can lead to misunderstandings, frustration, and disconnection from those you care about. Emotional intimacy becomes challenging, and the bonds you once shared may begin to fade. You may even start to push others away, convinced that it's safer to remain distant than to risk the pain that comes with vulnerability. The biggest cost of emotional disconnection, however, is the loss of self. When you block your feelings to avoid pain, you also block your capacity for joy, love, and fulfillment. Without fully experiencing the highs and lows of life, you lose the opportunity for growth and personal transformation. Over time, you may forget what it feels like to truly feel, to be alive in all the ways that matter. Emotional disconnection is a survival mechanism, but it's not a way of living. While it serves a purpose in times of crisis, staying in that state for too long leads to a slow erosion of your well-being, happiness, and sense of self. Healing begins when you allow yourself to feel again, to confront the pain, process the grief, and reconnect with the joy that still exists within you. Only then can you begin to restore balance in your emotional life and reclaim your capacity for genuine connection and healing.
Healing from emotional numbness is not an immediate or easy process, but it is a journey, a slow and steady return to feeling alive again. It begins with understanding that numbness is a defense mechanism, not a permanent state. It's a sign that your emotional system was overloaded and needed protection. The fact that you can recognize your numbness is a sign that deep down, there's still a part of you that wants to heal, to reconnect, and to feel again. The journey back to feeling starts with the smallest steps, and these small steps are the foundation for greater emotional recovery. The first step in the journey is self-awareness. Acknowledge your numbness without judgment. Instead of beating yourself up for not being able to feel the way you once did, offer yourself compassion. Realize that emotional numbness was your mind's way of protecting you. And now that you recognize it, you can begin to release it. Give yourself permission to feel, knowing that the process will be gradual. Healing isn't about forcing emotions. It's about creating space for them to return in their own time. The next step is creating a safe environment for your emotions. To heal, you must first learn to feel again without fear of being overwhelmed. This requires slowly lowering the emotional walls you've built. Journaling can be an effective way to explore your feelings, especially when you're not sure where to start. Writing down your thoughts and experiences can help bring buried emotions to the surface. You may not know exactly what you're feeling at first, but simply expressing it helps create space for deeper awareness. Another critical component of the journey back is mindfulness. Practicing mindfulness allows you to be present with your emotions without judgment. When an emotion arises, whether it's sadness, joy, anger, or fear, let yourself experience it fully. Instead of suppressing it, notice it, sit with it, and let it flow. Mindfulness helps you reconnect with your emotional self without being overwhelmed by the intensity of your feelings. Therapy or counseling can also play an important role in this healing journey. Working with a therapist allows you to safely process past trauma, release emotional blockages, and build healthier ways of coping with feelings. A therapist can help guide you in finding balance, learning how to feel without becoming consumed by your emotions. Lastly, reconnecting with people you trust and care about is crucial. True healing happens in connection. Be open with loved ones about your numbness and allow them to support you in your journey back to feeling. Vulnerability is part of the process, and through the support of others, you can rediscover the emotional warmth that connects us all. The journey back to feeling is not linear. There will be setbacks, moments of doubt, and days when it feels like nothing has changed. But every step you take towards emotional openness, every moment you allow yourself to feel, is a victory. Over time, the numbness will fade, and you'll begin to experience life in full color again, with joy, sadness, love, and connection all becoming part of your healing process. It's a journey toward becoming whole again,